Hello and welcome to another episode of the A-10 Insider Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Dosser. I have Jeff Goodman with me, and we are joined today by the boss of the Atlantic 10, the commissioner, Bernadette McGlade. Bernie, it is great to see you. Before we get started, I just want to point out to everybody that she is wearing her Eagles green and white necklace there. She is showing a little bit of love to the birds. How did you celebrate this Super Bowl victory?
Oh, actually, I was traveling. I got back literally to my place here in DC just probably an hour before the game. So just, a few people watching the game. And I think the fact that by halftime, everybody had a pretty good feeling who might be winning the game. So it was just it was just really a lot of fun. Obviously, growing up in South Jersey and being Phillies fans and Eagles fans, and of course everyone in my family, my older brothers and stuff, they couldn't be texting enough, fly birds, fly, Eagles go, all this kind of stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and I think it was really it was a fantastic day.
Well, I'm
Bernie,
just glad that
Ber-
we had our troops on the ground, boots on the ground there in DC for when the Eagles played the Commanders down there. So we had somebody we had some representation down there just to let everybody know.
I know it was a little lonely, let me tell you. Everyone here was pretty hungry but actually pretty happy with the Commanders even getting as far as they went. So, I think it was a win-win all the way around on that weekend as well.
all right, Bernie, give me your favorite Eagle of all time, because you and I are in the same generation. I actually grew up in Boston as an Eagles fan. For me, it was a choice between Wilbert Montgomery, Harold Carmichael, or Mike Quick. Give me your favorite Eagle of all time.
God, I don't even know that I have a favorite
All
Eagle of
right.
all time. But those three that you just named are pretty damn good.
They are. They are. They
Yeah.
were. They were before Rob's time. Rob was in diapers back then.
Yeah, you say those names good, and I'm like, what are those real people? I feel like you're making things up over here. All right, Bernie. So we got you on here. What do you make? Let's just start big picture here. You have George Mason first place in the league. You have VCU making a run at things. You have Dayton playing well. You have St. Louis dropped one the other night, but I mean Robbie Avila and Isaiah Swope and Josh Schertz are one of the most entertaining teams to kind of watch. Obviously, the Binders are good again. What have you made so far of this college basketball season in the Atlantic 10?
It's been a good season. Our teams at the top are playing well. And I think, like every league, you have to have that separation at some point in time. Our
Hmm.
non-conference schedules were really competitive. We had some great victories in the non-conference. And I think even like VCU, they struggled a little bit in non-conference, but they had a little bit of injuries and they've come on strong. And you look at our top three teams between Mason, VCU, and Dayton, all three of them are, NCAA tournament worthy teams. Dayton's got their back up against the wall a little bit from a record standpoint, but I think anyone that knows basketball knows how good they are when, we saw them non-conference with, the wins they picked up against
Hmm.
UConn and how they played Iowa State. And, they're a good team. They just, they've gone through a few bumps with the start of our conference season. But if they were in the tournament, I don't think anybody wants to play them.
What's the biggest challenge for you through the men? Let's go with the men's basketball season. Like what are you focused on more? I mean, obviously, I know you're taking calls probably from coordinator of officials, from some coaches, things of that nature. What is your like day-to-day involvement with men's basketball?
Obviously, following it and going
Yeah.
to games right now. The way that I've learned to do my schedule, having, been here now for X number of years, I learned quickly after my first couple seasons being commissioner, I had to get out earlier in non-conference because to wait just for conference games, you like to go to just conference games because you're seeing two of your teams in my role as commissioner. But if I wait until January and February, quite frankly, I'm hardly ever in the office to do the day job.
Right.
So I was out for a good portion of like the MTEs during
Yep.
non-conference, had a chance to see our teams, against was that, the Bonnies when they beat Providence. And that's a game that they easily could have lost. That got dicey at the very end. But I went to a handful of the MTEs to really get it gives you a good gauge on how good your teams are when you can see them against other NCAA teams from previous years. So, and then now that we're in league play, like tomorrow, I'll be over. St. Joe's is right here at Mason. So it's a great opportunity. I'll run over and I'll be able to see that game here. Believe it or not, we spend time here in the league office almost right now thinking about certainly, postseason selection Sunday, but also about, okay, next year, like how's our schedule going to look like? Are we still good with 18 games or are we thinking maybe about 20 games?
Yeah.
We're already thinking about who would be the matchups that are going to play home and home versus who wouldn't be. Taking a good look at, how all of our teams from top to bottom built their non-conference schedules this past year. And do we want to have some one-on-one conversations with some schools about what they're building for, next 225 non-conference in November, December? So, we're kind of out in front of it. And then also, obviously we have our championship here, Capital One in DC, but then next year's our 50th anniversary, and we're taking the championship back to Pittsburgh, where the
That's
league
awesome.
office was founded. So, it's a combination, Jeff, of sort of what's happening here and now, but, we can't have the blinders on because before we know it, we're going to be through March Madness and our spring meetings, and our coaches, they're blue chip coaches. They want to know what's the deal for next year.
Jeff, I don't know if you picked that up, but there's a reason why Bernie is the commissioner and why she's smart enough to put this stuff together. She's gonna bite the bullet and take the trip to go see Dayton and Maui, or maybe go see VCU and Charleston.
I didn't do
that. Make sure
I didn't go with Loyola to Hawaii this past December. Yeah, just make that
right?
clear. So my membership, my president's here. I didn't go to Hawaii with Loyola. Maybe I should have.
That's a rookie move. I mean, come on, what you got to go to Maui.
I know. Well, too, and that was a tough trip for them. Maybe I should have gone to Maui.
Yeah. You're
right. You mentioned getting ready for Selection Sunday, there's 3 or 4 teams here for the A-10 that are still kind of have a puncher's chance at getting themselves an at-large bid. Mason right now, I was just texting with our bracketology guy. He is our top automatic qualifier, and they are 1 or 2 spots outside of the kind of the at-large range right now. Dayton has the wins to be in the mix. VCU has a couple wins that has them in the mix. How are you advocating? Like, what does that look like for you, trying to promote these teams and trying to push these teams and trying to get the general public to realize, hey, George Mason is really, really good.
They are. And, the question is, okay, so VCU, who is a legitimate at-large NCAA team, if VCU beats Mason and all of a sudden does Mason fall out of the bracket completely? I say they should not. They're a solid team. Having been on the men's basketball selection committee, I have great respect for that committee, and you don't trick the committee. So it's not like that you just, advocate and can sort of pound them with whatever your message happens to be, because I know the work they do. They study the schedules, they study the data, they study all the statistical categories. And when you watch Mason and you watch VCU and you watch Dayton, you basically, the eye test tells you that they're tournament teams. We know it always doesn't work out that way. And so, in terms of just advocating, the one thing, this sounds terribly basic, but all I tell my teams is just win. Stop thinking about, don't think too far down the line. Like, win the game that you have tonight, win the game that you have tomorrow. And, don't be sort of doing too much pen on paper and calculating your last 4 or whatever you happen to be, because, you can't replace winning. And the challenge in the A-10, and this is no secret to you all, is obviously getting the Q1 games, because the outside, our non-conference opponents, the stronger your teams are, our top teams, nobody wants to go to Dayton and play. Nobody wants to go to VCU and play. If you've ever been in those arena, it is as good as they get from a crowd and from the atmosphere and the home court advantage. So, we're constantly working and trying to work with, statisticians and folks that are really, really proficient in how all these models are built of how we can continue to get more Q1 games. Because the committee does really, you know, they look highly upon Q1, whether you win or lose.
So I've been a proponent of not expanding the tournament for a while here. I just feel like it's great the way it is. I felt like it was great at 64, to be honest, but I'm fine with 68. I know Greg Sankey and some of the other, Power Four commissioners want this thing expanded, mostly for their own benefit as much as anything. I actually think if they expanded, it would benefit you guys should benefit you guys. I won't say will,
Right.
but should benefit you guys if Greg Sankey doesn't have his way, more than just about anybody. Where do you stand with this, and why, as much as anything? Why? What's your case for whether it's expansion or keeping it
Right.
as is?
I'm clearly in the camp for expansion.
Okay.
And I've been in that camp for many years, even when I was on the committee and it wasn't getting much chatter at all 4 years ago. It's been sort of cresting here in the last 18 months. But I think that it should be expanded. I think when you have 365 approximately Division I institutions all playing basketball, and the postseason opportunity for March Madness is right now at 68. I think that expansion makes sense. And it's not all about the money, but I say for the good of the game. Because there's talk about some folks that say, well, don't expand it because maybe the unit value, it's going to cost more money. But the brand, what that does for the brand enhancement and an institution, a college or university, when your name goes up on that board on Selection Sunday,
Sure.
that rippling effect of the glow of being in the final bracket, and that the iconic event that it is for the 3 weeks that it's going on, and what it does for colleges and universities and alumni and undergraduate enrollments and just your brand value. I mean, we know institutions that haven't been in the Final Four for a couple years, and yet their brand value is still shiny because people say, "Oh yeah, they had a great run in March Madness." So I think for the good of the game, and certainly for the elevation of basketball and the presence, and football is a behemoth, and it just gobbles up so much airspace. And I think you can look. I mean, all of your professional leagues, they don't hesitate to expand. CFP can expand, March Madness. And I do think you can do it within the calendar, because there is a very real challenge in that with their media partners, with CBS and Time Warner Discovery, it's a hard stop. They're not going to go into that weekend with the Masters because of other commitments. So, but I'm a proponent that you can play. Dayton doesn't have to be the only place to have first round games.
Yeah.
And having worked closely with the bracket, I think it's better for the student athletes if there was a version of Dayton in Pacific Time Coast, in maybe Mountain Time. And so then you send
And the
those,
Palestra. We got to get one of those in the Palestra.
they're still Eastern Time Zone though. But the Palestra you can lobby for that. I'm lobbying for something else. But you go 3 time zones. So now your teams that advance, they stay right there in a time zone. Because right now we have teams that advance out of Dayton, and they get shipped on a plane at like 2 a.m.
Right.
and go to Spokane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard to win that next game.
Really hard.
Yeah, no matter how good you are. I mean, there is a human element to the student athletes and the wear and the tear. And then on top of it, lo and behold, if you have a snag, planes delayed because of weather, something, something. So I think that there is an opportunity. I don't think it can go 96.
Oh, it better not.
No,
Oh,
I
it
don't think
better
it can
not.
go. I don't think it can go there. But
Like,
I
add some
absolutely,
plans.
I think
That's
it can
fine.
go. Yeah, it can go 72, 76.
Right.
And I think then you can really then have 2 more pockets of sort of the opening round and then go from there.
So who am I going to invoice all of the stuff for, where all my field of 68 stuff? When I have to get new, who do I send the invoice to?
Don't be
Charlie
invoicing the
Baker.
A-10 anymore. Invoice Greg Sankey in the SEC.
Yeah, they
That's what
got
I'll
money.
do.
We will.
That's
That's
what
what
I'll
we'll
do.
do.
Yeah,
What I'll
that's
do.
what you have to
It'll
do. Go for
it'll
the
be
deep
on him. Let's
Go for
face
the
it, he's driving
deep
it.
pockets, right? Go for the deep pockets.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
speaking of revenue sharing is coming here at some point, it seems like, right? And how are you kind of handling that with your schools and your teams in terms of what they can allocate there, the budget they can allocate? Is there like a minimum requirement that you guys like? Everyone saw that report about VCU, and I don't need you to like name specific numbers, but like how do you, as the commissioner, we talk about
No, I
scheduling.
want a specific number. Come on, Bernie, give me a. I've heard. All right, so my sources tell me. All right, and you can poo-poo this if you want. Talk around it. My sources tell me there's potentially a minimum $1 million threshold for every A-10 team next season.
I think that if you're going to be competitive, everybody has to, and what I'm saying to you, I said to my presidents over the last 6 months, to our AD, it's a new model for college sports. Our environment has changed. And with NIL and with the post-house settlement and being able to get more financial, support to these student athletes, you're going to have to spend more money.
Mhm.
And if you want to stay relevant, if you want to stay in contention for not only your AQs, but also for at large, and if you're not willing to go down that road in this new environment, you're going to be left sitting on the curb. And so I think, I've used the term before to each of our schools, you got to look in the mirror and you got to really decide what space do you want to be in. There's no flat out minimum that we have technically put in place.
Yeah.
But I think practically speaking, if you're not in that ballpark of 1 million, 2, 3 as a basketball centric league, you're not going to be successfmember
100%.
So I think, it's sort of a common sense. It's very hard. We have a really, our membership. We have 15 right now. UMass obviously is making the transition, but the 14 schools that we have are fabulous. I think they're looking forward. They're committed to basketball. There's a sense of excitement because there is a window of opportunity for basketball-centric leagues in this new model.
Yep.
And so I think that feeling is palpable. As much as people are nervous, there is that sense. And then, they're so diverse. The way that some of our larger land-grant institutions like a George Mason may approach this could be very different than the way Davidson approaches it. But they're both going to approach it pretty aggressively. I just saw a really impressive letter that went out to all the Davidson alumni and to their community about their commitment of going forward. It came out late yesterday. And it was really, really well stated. And, they're staying in the game. They're staying in the game. Basketball is kind of in their DNA as one of the best liberal arts small colleges in America. And that is communicated through their athletic programs and their success. And they're going to continue that because it's part of their institutional DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bernie, I just bought a house in Charleston. And the biggest question I get down there from all the people down there is, all right, are they going to the A-10? Is Charleston going to the A-10? I know, but I got to ask it. Listen, it's the reporter in me, okay? I got to ask these questions. You can
Charleston
talk around them a little bit. And I'm not asking you about Charleston specifically. Right. Okay, I'm not.
Right.
But I am asking you about expansion. Like you said, you're going to be at 14. Yeah. That's a pretty good number. Better than 15 in most people's opinions, right? It's a little bit easier number to kind of handle. But you always, again, we've talked about this for the last few years.
Yeah.
You always got to play offense while you're playing defense if you're a commissioner right now. How happy are you with that 14 number? Do you want to expand? Are you just kind of taking it one day at a time and trying to figure this thing out? Where's your head at with expansion?
Yeah, I agree with you. There is a sense of there's strength in numbers. I mean, we've seen that with the Power Fours, what's happening with realignment in those leagues. We're fortunate that we've always been, at least for the last relevant 6 years, a big league with 15 institutions. 14 is a really good number, but I would say we're not figuring it out. And we strategically talk about it. And, we are not opposed to adding additional schools in terms of going back to 15 or 16. But at the same time, we don't feel direct pressure to have to make a move without it being the right move. To expand, I think every commissioner in every league of the current members, they want institutions that are going to bring value. And for you, like for us in the A-10, value means, how much are they committed? Could they be an at-large team in the championship? Where a conference doesn't look just to bring in somebody that's going to get their AQ. Are they going to be an at-large quality type of program? Are they going to fit? We care about geography, where that is going out the window for some leagues, but that our footprint right now is pretty darn good. Especially with getting Loyola in Chicago, with Loyola and St. Louis and Dayton, and then we're essentially on the Eastern Seaboard. So it is always a point of discussion. I'm not going to say that we're not going to, ever invite any other institutions into the A-10, but at the same time, there's not this pressure of, oh my God, our membership is dwindling. We feel like we're solid. 14 is a good number. And right now, the 14 that we have are so focused on, how are they going to approach the future with this new environment that we're in, and do it in a way that they protect the integrity and the graduation rates of their school. Our presidents are really proud of that. But at the same time, we got to be beast on the court. We got to win games. We can't just be a good team that, lost by 3.
Mm-hmm. That was a good answer right there, Jeff.
I mean, can I just add one final thing?
Sure.
Charleston is a beautiful city, a lot of great restaurants, the beach not far. My wife and I bought a house that has an extra bedroom, so if you do come down, you're more than welcome to stay for free.
Don't do it, Bernie.
The sales pitch here, Bernie, come on.
I feel like you've been talking to Bobby Crimmins. When Bobby is at the games at Charleston, and they're now, Carolyn and Bobby, I think, are over at Hilton Head, but they were in Charleston for that pretty long period of time. Even this year in December, he was over. I'm getting a text from Bobby Crimmins. Commish, I'm telling you, you got to get down here. So you must be hanging out with him a little bit. It's a great school. It's a great school.
I'm just having a little fun with you, but yeah, it is. Listen, expansion. It's one of those topics you get asked about all the time, whether it's tournament expansion, whether it's league expansion. I mean, it is a crazy time right now in college sports. It is a crazy time that when you got into this, you never envisioned having to deal with all this, whether it's NIL, the portal. I guess
wish I was still playing at Carolina, man. I could be killing it.
You make some real money. Exactly. You would have been, what would your deal have been? If I had said, not money necessarily, but what would the NIL deal that you, Bernie, would want? Like it might have been a Carolina with like a restaurant, something. What would that deal have been?
Oh, I think I go for apparel. Everybody loves the apparel and the gear. Mm-hmm. You can't get enough gear, right?
Right. True.
All right, Bernie, here's the last one I got for you.
Gear is like currency.
Yes, it is. It is.
Last one I got for you, Bernie. We know about VCU and the Peppers, right? We know about Doc Nix and the Green Machine at George Mason. You're in D.C. I've been telling Chris that he has to get a go-go band to be the resident band at the GW games. And then I think we need to go out and we need to get everybody in the A-10 needs to have like some kind of local music, local flair, and turn the A-10 not just into a good basketball league, but a battle of the bands league where we can make that be part of the A-10 tournament. Not only do you come to see the action on the court, but these guys are going to have a battle on the bands outside of the arena before the game starts. That's my pitch.
Jeff, we're trying to win games. And we're trying to get at-large teams into the tournament. And your buddy here, Rob, wants me to start getting Battle of the Bands. How many
I,
things do I need to focus on?
focus. Right.
Right. Yeah.
This is the problem with Rob. Like,
Rob,
he's all over the place. He's got ADD, Bernie. He's got ADD at the highest level.
Rob, I think that you need to jump on board with the A-10 and you need to
You
like
put me in charge of that? I'm in.
That's
Let's
right.
go. I'm
You
in.
you be in charge of that, and you get Caputo, and you get a couple of your buddies to give you a little backup support. And I'm all with you. We'll send you T-shirts.
Perfect. There you go. Your NIL gear, you can send to
That's
us
right.
while I get the Battle of the Bands ready to go. And Jeff can go sit there in Charleston all by himself, way down south. We don't even need to deal with him. Perfect.
Nah, we'll get him up here.
The last thing I have for you, Bernie, is
Yeah.
going back to what I just said. You know, you getting into this and how much it's changed. Do you still have the love for this that you had prior? How much has it changed? How much is it a grind now that it's always been a grind? Let's face it, as a commissioner of a big time league, it's always going to be work, work, work. But it's a little bit different now. I say that even as somebody covering college basketball. I love it when November 4th starts. I love it. Love the games, love getting out there, being around the kids, coaches, watching. That's what I got into it for. The offseason, not so easy. Not so easy watching the portal and every kid go in and dealing with the agents. And yeah, I mean, listen, I'm all for kids getting paid, but you know, some of these freshmen coming in who haven't really done anything, who are getting paid big money based on their recruiting rankings. Some of it has been challenging for me. And I know I sound like that old man, you know, get off my lawn. But what's it been like for you?
I identify with what you're saying. I guess the best way I could describe it is, you know, now versus maybe 10 years ago, there's more of this kind of a colder business aspect that is closer to the teams and the coaches than it's ever been in the environment. Like you said, you used to go to games and, you know, we love non-conference games because you can always really root for your team. Conference games, we're like, well, we have a winner every game we go to, you know, and you sort of are like the ambassador of what's going on. But, you know, I worry 5 years because this is an entirely new model that we're going into. And I don't worry about the upper 1% that's going to end up going pro. And there's going to be that another slice that are going to go over to Europe, do really well, play internationally, all of that. But yet this other group that have what very well could be, and we're creating it, we're making decisions, this inflated sense of value of like not the real world. And they leave their institution, they're no longer on a team. And all of a sudden they get a real job that offers them $70,000 or $80,000, which is nothing to sneeze at. And they're going to pull back like and wonder, well, like, why would I even do that? So
Right.
I do think there's a danger for the majority of our student athletes right now. And that's where I think the schools are really going to have to step up in terms of, you know, like educating the student athletes. Like this is in many sense not the real world that they're living
That's
in.
right.
And
Yep.
there is a cold, harsh world out there once we all leave our great campuses and go out and start working in you know regular professional jobs and raising families and kids and paying bills and all of that. So, you know, that's a concern. But at the end of the day, I do think that, you know, NIL is, I think the student athletes should get a piece of the pie. And I think that is important. But I think how we do it is going to be even critically more important. And, you know, we're kind of like learning as we go here. And so I do think we're going to have some rough waters for the next couple of years until things sort of settle out.
Mhm.
But A-10 is going to be hopefully front and center. And like I said, we just worried about we want to win games and get in postseason.
Yep. Well, listen, Bernie, we appreciate you jumping on and joining us on the A-10 Insider Podcast. It's always good to hear your perspective, and it's always good to catch up with you, even if you don't like my Battle of the Bands ideas. So we appreciate
I
you.
love it. I love it. I'm just giving you an assignment. I'm delegating it to you. I
That's
love
what
it.
commissioners do. You delegate.
That's right.
Smart. That's what.
Yeah, I love
See,
it.
Jeff, that's why she's the boss.
That's right. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks,
We
Thank
Bernie.
you.
appreciate it. Great having you on as always. A-10 Insider Pod. We love doing it. Love your coaches, players, telling the stories, hearing the stories. It's been awesome. Another year. We started this with you guys, I think it was 4 years ago now. And hopefully we'll continue it.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. We do have great coaches, really love them to death, but you guys do great work, and I'm glad you keep expanding as you're doing. And so keep up the good work, and we'll see you hopefully down the road during
Definitely.
crazy March Madness.